Already. Don't know if you can resist that, but go for it, of course. So my name is Chris Schuld. I'm with Cortex Services, and this is.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm Chris Campbell. I'm with Microsoft. So I'm a cloud architect with Microsoft, and this is our second meeting here at the Microsoft offices for our Azure group. So happy that some folks came back. I was just curious, how many of you were here last month? So a few. Let's got some new attendees too. Okay, so I was just standing at the back of the room thinking that the first rule of Azure Club is you can absolutely tell other people about Azure. Right? So feel free to tell your coworkers. We're shooting to have a nice big community supported group. So thanks for everybody for coming tonight. I'll turn it back over to you guys.
Sure. Yeah. So just so you know, this is kind of new this time. So I've had technical difficulties for working me through it, but we're trying to broadcast this so for the people that can't make it out here, they can also join. And whether they're maybe not even in the area that they'd like to join, they can do that as well. So we're going to keep posting that up on the meetup. So if you're not on the meetup, get on the meetup. If you don't know where the meetup is, let us know, and we'll help you get onto that. That's where we're going to keep all the information kind of going and help communicate what's coming up for topics, give you some opportunities to answer some polls, feedback, any of that good stuff. That'll be there, as well as the webinar invites as well. So I started the intros already. So like I said, I'm Chris Schuld. I'm with Cortex Services. I'm our Microsoft Solutions Architect. So I'm working cloud technologies, on-prem technologies, a little bit of everything. So I have some content I'm actually going to be jumping into here shortly. Yes, that's basically registering at the sign-in sheet up there. We have an AMC gift card that we're going to be raffling off here at the end. So definitely make sure you do that. And we have to go to webinar. So I am going to get into OMS overview. We'll have a little bit of a break, and then we have a presentation on ExpressRoute as well. Then we'll get into birds of a feather, kind of bring up questions, answers, give you some feedback from anybody else of what you've been doing. If you have any problems architecture-wise, anything with Azure, questions, whatnot, just kind of open the forum discussion we're going to have, and then we'll wrap everything up. All right? So, let's switch gears here. Thank you, Chris. Okay. So, this is going to be an overview of I think is one of the hottest items that's come with Azure, and I'm starting to see a lot more traction, let's say, with this, and a lot of value for a lot of customers is OMS. Anybody using OMS today, Operations Management Suite, in your environment? All right. Well, hopefully by the end of this, you'll all be like, can't wait to get home to start playing with it. That'll be the plan, right? This is just one of the software service offerings from Azure. There have been some pieces of this that have been out for a while. If anybody's heard of maybe log analytics, everybody use log analytics? The free version? No? Yeah. So, what did you say? Log analytics. So it was like operational insights, that what it used to be called, tied into SCOM and stuff. So this is that's one of the four pieces of this. This is a pretty deep subject. We're only going to be able to get kind of topical on here, but to give you an idea of what OMS is, why it might be important to what you do. Maybe there's somebody else that you're working with that it might be important to. You can kind of point them in that direction. And I'll show you how to get started with. Actually, there's a free tier of this that you can play with a little bit on your own to get a Azure free trial or MSDN.
I just wondered, does anybody use Splunk?
That's a good question.
Splunk users in here?
Okay.
So Azure Log Analytics, Splunk.
Yep, that's a good comparison actually. So, like I said, I'm Microsoft Solutions Architect with Cortex. You can be up on Twitter. I'm trying to be more active on there. @SchulderChris, or feel free to email me if you have any questions. I always have a lot of information I'm willing to share with anybody on anything Azure and IaaS related technology-wise. So we're going to kind of get into this in a little bit of an intro here. I want to talk about one of the big items that I know is on a lot of organizations' minds is business continuity. That'll flow into then what is the OMS and what is included in there, and give you an idea of how it's licensed as well. And then Q&A, get into here too. So, just an introduction here. Really, the key here is this is a cloud-based service, and I know many of you probably have worked with maybe System Center. Who's working with System Center today? We got a few people. So yep, that's something back here too. So that's that's your traditional on-prem management system, right? And that's you have your big manager for your clients and servers. You have operations manager doing some monitoring. You do some remediation with that too. And they're great products for on-prem. As you might know if you've ever implemented them, it's a beast, right? It's pretty complex. And maintaining it takes time, and you got to keep it up and running. You got to do backups. You got to do a lot of stuff to maintain it. So that's kind of kept some people, I think, away from a lot of those great management tools that have a lot of power to them. Because it does take a little bit of knowledge to understand how to best use them. But now as we're taking this journey now to the cloud and starting to see how the cloud helps us with making things, it's quicker to get time to value. You don't have to wait for recs to come in for purchase orders for servers, and it's this new cloud management aspects that things are starting to head towards. So the traditional world of IT, is really under a lot of pressure, and it really comes down to that 50% of the total IT spending will be outside of the formal IT organization, so meaning like SaaS and public cloud services, that type of thing. So that is something that's already kind of happening here, and this is where OMS fits in. And by 2018, enterprises will own only half of the world's server computing capacity, meaning Azure, AWS, you name it, all their community clouds and hosting providers will actually have half the servers. So this is just the trend. This is where things are going. So this pressure is driving that change. Where you have the business units, you'll see there's a lot of turbulence there in innovation. You have businesses. You're seeing a kind of a shift here where business wants to move faster than the speed of IT, right? And a lot of times I see IT saying like, oh, hold on here, I can't. It's too much, too fast, we got all these other projects going on, and we got to buy servers, or we got to figure out security-wise, and we got, there's a lot of it's kind of resistance there, right? So a lot of users, and from the business side, they're going off and doing their own thing, right? Because they want to be innovative. And from the IT perspective, you want something that's scalable and that's something that's predictable as well. So there's kind of like this push and pull going on. And so you have between the velocity, complexity, what's going on, all these costs and processes, it's hard to meet in the middle for everybody. So we're sitting now, most organizations, where you've either kind of thinking about the cloud, or probably do it soon, you dip your toe in, or you're kind of this full hybrid situation. Unless you're a really small company or like startup, a lot of times you're going to have something that's on-prem as well, right? You're going to have hybrid. So you still have your traditional data center with your infrastructure, apps, and like you mentioned before, it's expensive. It's all vertically integrated hardware there, a lot of siloed infrastructure, and very highly customized processes, configurations. And now we have this new cloud model that we're seeing with developers now have this capability of doing so much more, and they have much more of a critical business role, microservices and modern apps. The server is no longer kind of center of everything of IT. It's a very different mindset, right? So that's definitely a change. And the application data is the business data. So as we're making modern IT investments, you have to look at a lot of things to, kind of this complete picture, right? This 360 view of everything in modern IT to ensure that, that you're, from a building perspective, you have the right tools to do that in a consistent way. Being able to configure things to enable automation and orchestration in a consistent manner. Being able to monitor the configurations of what's happening out there. Do analytics, discover alerts. Protecting that data as well is very important. Securing everything that you put into the cloud, or it's still on-prem, and then governing that as well. So we're kind of getting into all these pieces, and OMS actually can help with most of this. So we're looking for speed, flexibility, and simplicity. That's kind of the name of the game with cloud, and I think that's where cloud is really foundational. That's where it helps. I want to give you a business continuity here. This is a big topic I'm hearing a lot of customers toying with. when you hear business continuity, what do you think of?
Site replication.
Site replication. What else? Disaster recovery, backups, right? Keeping the business running, right? And on-prem, that's difficult, right? A lot of times, if you have a single data center, well, you have site resiliency, you have to have a second data center with at least everything that you have in the first data center typically. Very expensive if you don't already have a second data center and have that scale. But even so, if you have two data centers, it's still the process and configurations and testing of all PR. It's expensive. It's complex. It's just really difficult to deal with. And there's some typo there I just saw. But a lot of organizations have not even tested their PR. Right? I'm not going to have you guys raise your hands, but that is a big problem, because if you haven't tested it, you could pretty much just assume it's not going to work, right? Or it's just going to take an extremely long time to get everything back up and running. And that means that in the end, you could lose a lot of business or the entire business. We've seen it happen. So you have a lot of challenges here, either too many complications and those problems and mistakes, and too much data. I mean, data is growing at an exponential rate now, right? I'm sure everybody's seen that. But not enough data retention, depending on your compliance policies, whatever you have. Time-intensive media management. Anybody willing to admit you're still dealing with tapes? You got that guy, yep. So it's still happening. That's still out there. And then the untested DR as well, and the increasing costs. So the idea is, you know, automate this process. And as you add more servers and other processes and applications, you need to automate that and bring them into that system quickly. Have your integration with all the systems for that protection. Increasing that depth and breadth of all the continuity protection. Eliminate tape management. You can do it. It is possible. I've seen it happen. Just say no to tape. Seriously. If you get one thing out of this, is say, get rid of your tapes, please. Replace it with a good solution, of course, but don't need those anymore. And you just leave it on Iron Mountain until they just, you don't die, type of thing. No new tapes.
Unless there's someone here from Iron Mountain.
Yeah, unless someone here from Iron Mountain, then maybe not. But you need to implement testable solutions for data recovery and have better costs and operation stability too. So you'll see things like recovery point objective, which is how much data loss you can very much tolerate. When was the last kind of snapshot for that application, that server, that whatever data. And so that's an important part of everything. And then there's also RTOs. How long does it take for you to get back up and running? Right? From disaster occurs, what's the time until everything's back up and running for your organization? So that's going to be one of the topics here that is kind of a prelude of one of the features that comes with OMS. And also want to talk about management, right? So this evolution of management tools. We've kind of gone from started this LAN era to an enterprise era, now the cloud era here, and take you through this here. So let's kind of go way back machine. So remember back when it was all manuals, right? You had to go log into consoles, you had to go check logs on each server, you had checklists you had to check off, and scripts maybe help you a little bit with that, right? So I'm sure many of you have been in that position at some point in your career, right? So that's what you had, right? That was that kind of sneaker net type of networking that you deal with. You go to computer to computer to deal with all that stuff. And then we got stuff like MMC, right? The Microsoft Management Console. And we can go do remote tools and remote desktop. Right? That's huge. You don't have to actually go physically go to the console on the server in the data center. You can get to it remotely. Managing with SMS back in the day. Now, Config Manager, as we like to call it. Monitoring with MOM back then, now it's SCOM, right? So we're getting some more automation, some of these tools automatically bringing all this data together, allowing you to do so, take some automatic actions, and giving you more information. So then, now we're getting this era, which is definitely this cloud era. That is probably why you're all here, right? You have a capability that's fully integrated view of your entire environment. And I'm not talking about just in the cloud. I'm talking about on-prem as well. And true analytics of all of your systems and clouds. It's all this data that's usually very hard to deal with. It's all these signals coming in everywhere. It's hard to manage all that on-prem, but in the cloud, it can be done differently. And you can get a lot more insights from that. And having some response that's actually intelligent to that, not just having a whole bunch of bells, alerts going off or whatever else, you don't know, you're like, all right, ignore that. This is actually intelligent response. You can put some automated recovery or remediations in place even. So that's kind of where we're headed. And what's interesting is this is kind of like management as a service. And like I said, it's hybrid, but it's also for open systems too. This is not just Windows Server. This is, and it's not just Azure too. So any other cloud, Azure, AWS, no matter where your servers or applications are at. This is Linux, this is Windows. So this is all in one management solution. So that is what's very interesting. It doesn't just have to be domain joined servers. It can be workgroup servers too. So what comes out of why OMS? Why should I look into this? Well, the key is that it's simple. Right? It's very simple. It's a single portal for all your management tasks in the cloud, and it's web-based. So obviously, console-wise, it's a lot easier to deal with. Those three check marks, of course. The time to value is very quick. I'm telling you, if you have an Azure subscription, you can stand up what you need in minutes and actually have something working. Then start installing agents and you're immediately getting data. That is not something you could say for any on-prem management solution. I would challenge anybody to say that. Because even if it's a hardware-based solution, you got to order the hardware, you got to plug it in. That's going to take longer, right? It's very easy to integrate with adding a new server, connecting to existing workloads. And then it's also optimized for System Center. One question that I usually get is this just System Center in the cloud? Is this going to replace System Center? No, not necessarily. It has a lot of aspects you'll probably see if you're familiar with System Center, but I'd say it augments and makes it better together. You can use them independently, or you can use them together. So if you already have that investment, this just extends that even further. So the solutions, and this is where I break it down, the four separate kind of pillars or solutions that come with it. We have log analytics that has been around for a while. I mentioned operational insights, ingesting logs from all different data sources, giving you visibility across all of your systems. Automation, so orchestrating complex tasks, things that you would normally have to do more than a couple times. You could orchestrate that, make a runbook, and have it done for you, either on demand or because of some sort of automatic trigger. Availability, so this is where we're getting the data protection application availability, disaster recovery, backups, and then security. Security is a big topic on the mind of many businesses these days, and there's just so much going on that it's hard to have one solution that looks at everything. This might be one solution that maybe plugs into all of your others and can have one singular view of everything from a security standpoint across all of your workloads. So this is the idea of just the hybrid IT management, right? So you have the on-prem, you could have System Center, all your servers on-prem, and you can have your public cloud, another private hosted cloud, and Microsoft Operations Management Suite just sits kind of in between and can talk to all of those. So we talked about that, this cloud platform, hybrid with System Center and on-prem. Visibility here. Like I said, end-to-end monitoring. We're going to get some deeper stuff here. Let me go past these real quick. All right, so log analytics. This one's really powerful, actually. Like I said, across all the different workloads, you really collect all this data. It's all unstructured. So it's not like a SQL server. You have to know what the structure is before this data comes in. It's completely unstructured data. But because of the power of the cloud, it can take all this data and you can get insights before you even know what question you want to ask. All the data is there. You ask the question, and then the data is presented to you in the way that you want it to be. Right? So you don't have to think about it ahead of time of what type of questions you want to ask. So that makes it very powerful, and then you can very extensible as well. You continue to add more and more solutions on top of that. And it's very easy to collect and correlate all that data and get some visualizations that are actually built in. There's even plugins for Power BI too for management, of course, or you can have like a NOC and have some dashboards, that type of thing going on. Physical, virtual cloud infrastructure, the health of those, capacity and usage, and even proactive operational data analysis. So this is one piece that is really cool. With SCOM, with Operations Manager, you put an agent on all your servers, and you're getting the data, like it's what errors are happening, what's the performance. You can look at a whole bunch of different metrics, right? And you get all that information. You can set thresholds, and you know if it's gone above the threshold or something like that, and you take action off of that. Well, with the Insights Analytics here, it plugs into a database at Microsoft that maintains all of their support engineers that see problems happening, throughout all the support calls that they have, and they correlate those events to, in this very, niche situation where you have this version of this piece and you have this, level server, automatic from here, and with that, we might see a stop code, right? So they recommend upgrading this piece so that you can preventively do that. Well, that information is so hard to find, even if it was on the internet somewhere, to proactively know that that's the exact situation that your server's in, to prevent that from happening would be just arduous to figure that out. Well, with this, and the agents is looking at all that information and correlating to that knowledge that Microsoft Support has already put together and can proactively help you prevent major issues on your servers. That alone is a huge value, right, that you just really can't get anywhere else. So in the search, it's quite integrated, and everything is based off of this log search. Every solution we'll show you is based, this is the core of it. And you get some, as you can see, there's some bar graphs on there, right? You type in, using some basic syntax about, I want to see, where are my servers, like, by operating system version or whatever, let's say. And it'll give you a list of everything based off that operating system version. Put it in a bar graph for you really easily. You can change the time range that you want, filter results, and pivot on all those. And a lot of this is clickable. You can dive into it. Yeah, you have a question?
So, for example, are you able to use SQL Server Management Studio as a database? You can use a lot of data that way, or is it pretty much running through this interface?
So the ingestion, so the viewing of the data is really going to be through this interface. Yeah. So it's not going to be your typical SQL management server interface, for that. But all the information that would be inside there in terms of metrics and configurations, whatever else could be brought in here, and you can put queries on that. What's interesting too is that you can save these queries and get back to them quickly, right? You want to see, all right, what servers are running more than 90% CPU or something like that. You can pull that query, run it again, or you can turn that into a run book. We'll talk about that later. Do it automatically for you. So the other piece of this too is interesting is change tracking, right? So what changes happen to those servers? Because when there's an issue, typically, let's say a help desk call or some Sev 1 alert, right? Something changed, right? It's not that everything was exactly the same because you probably wouldn't get the alert. Something changed. So sometimes it's very difficult to figure out what has changed, right? So what this does is it will see across all of your servers and all your data sources what's changed. Has a Windows service changed the state? Has it stopped? Has something been installed or uninstalled? Has something been moved or something been powered off or whatever else? This will allow you to see those changes across all of your environments, so you can very quickly track into what happened when on a timeline view for that. So then the ad hoc root cause analysis can actually be done a lot easier, and then you can have some automated troubleshooting as well, so that when you see some sort of event happen, you can trigger a runbook to run and actually automatically remediate that. And you can get custom graphical state searches. So kind of like I showed you some bar graphs, there's a lot more you can do with that as well. And you can customize your dashboard depending on what's important to you. Right? Everybody in the organization and the IT organization might have different things important to them. Maybe one person cares about SQL Server and what's happening there, what's the performance and health there. Other people care about the network. Other people care about servers in general. So you can create custom dashboards there. And these can be based off of those searches, those queries that you created. And then there's solution packs. So this is what Microsoft has been doing, and they're actually opening this up to third parties. There's some in preview right now, where it's all based on the power of everything in the background, that those logs. But a lot of times, okay, I'm searching, I'm querying, I'm getting some insights, but it's not super, insightful. Well, Microsoft has already created a lot of solution packs that bring certain information up to the surface and make it very visible and to let you know what's actionable and what you need to change or deal with. So that's powered in the back end by the search, and it helps you to investigate and remediate a lot of those operational issues. You can remove them, add them, customize them, all you want. We'll go through some of those solution packs here. So the alert management is, this is going to be based off of certain queries that you might create on automatically say above this threshold, or if you see 2 or 3 of these incidents and I want an alert, you can have kind of a dashboard for that piece. And this will also pull in those best practices I talked about with Microsoft support. So those will be brought up into this as well. SQL Server assessment. This is actually really cool. So unless you have a DBA that's like totally on it, right, and is just every day in that SQL Server, knows all the best practices, and is deep looking at the configuration and the state of that SQL Server, I'd say something's probably going to get missed. Well, with this solution pack, it will look at everything going on with that SQL Server. Is your temp DB running out of space? Is it, something configuration-wise, like you should have more temp DBs because you have more cores, or you should move the, split off the different partitions or whatever else. You might have some performance issues here if you do this. You have security issues here. This is all brought into one place for your SQL servers. You just literally put the agent on the device, on the SQL server, and turn on the solution pack, and it starts pulling this data for it. So thousands of different data points that you get from it. Help you with performance, security, upgrade migration, deployment, operations monitoring. This is a very powerful one. There's that change tracking. So like I said, software changes, when the service changes, any other type of configuration type changes, you can proactively kind of take a look at that and say, okay, well, that's weird. There's some changes over here. I didn't know anybody's messing with this server. Let's see what's going on. Or that root cause analysis after some sort of an incident. You might need to go back in time to see what's going on.
Chris?
Yes?
Does it catch permission changes?
That's a good question. Yeah, does it catch permission changes?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
That's a good question. There might be something. I mean, if it's a log or something that you can set up, then you can adjust that.
Yeah, like a file, if you were logging file events.
Yep, you can. I know that you can do some stuff there. You can monitor files, folders, that type of thing.
So the point, I think, to make here
Yeah.
is that it's basically whatever is logged on the system, since that log from basically what we all know as event logs are ingested into the cloud, then all of the rest of this is based on intelligence from that knowledge.
And beyond that, because these APIs and this monitoring agent is looking at everything, performance and service changes, all these other things happening on the device. And not only Windows Server, remember, this is Linux too. And this now can ingest SEF format, so common event format, from any device, your network devices, your SIEM, syslog. Yep, anything that's in SEF, it can pull in. Right? I mean, those point solutions that you might have, you want to bring everything in one place. One thing was like ATA, if everybody's worked or heard about advanced threat analytics, doesn't have like a greatest reporting story, let's say right now, but you can pull all that information into log analytics, and you can get some insights into there and pull in some other third-party tools and contextually see this data side by side, right? So that's a very powerful piece of this. And automation, as we're going, like I said, in the cloud journey here, automation is it's a big part of it. Honestly, it is. To be truly, taking advantage of everything in the cloud, you have to be able to take those tasks that you do manually, or even the script-wise, and automate, right? Whether it's on demand, or you might set it on a trigger or a schedule, that type of thing. And really, the thing is that it reduces all those errors, right? And just that human effect. So if you test out those most of the things are working, and you can just do it over and over again, and you know it's going to continue to work. So I mean, and that's one of the biggest issues you can see is somebody made a mistake, right? They accidentally did something they shouldn't have done. This can help protect you and your organization from that. And the idea too is runbooks. So runbooks, if anybody used Orchestrator, I know somebody has. So that's another System Center component that is a System Center orchestrator. You run books, you can do it visually and have kind of workflows and different, trying to explain that, but you have different results. It does one thing, versus does another thing, it has error tracking, and can do very, 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 very complex procedures, processes. But you still need on-prem servers, and you have to have that running and everything. And you build these runbooks, and there's also some base runbooks you start with there too. Well, with this, before all this really came together recently, you had to do is all PowerShell workflows. So yeah, you had to know some scripts, right? And that was fine if you knew that and you were willing to go through that. But now it's more of a, trying to go with me, you can do visually now, just like you can at Orchestrator. So think of like Visio diagrams and flowcharts, and you're connecting this action to this action, and if this, then that type of situation. So it's a lot more easily digestible, let's say, from a visual standpoint. And what's great as well is that it taps right into the automation gallery for Microsoft, and other people can contribute to that gallery. So there's so many runbooks there that you can start with, and you're probably 90% or more there. Right? So you don't have to build from scratch. So there's so much contribution to this. And you have the visibility of the automation activities too. So you don't just want to have runbook just run and you're like, okay, I hope everything works right. Everything, you can get visibility as well. You have a question?
Yeah. Visual versus traditional text-based scripting of something. I've used a number of visual ones, and they quickly run out of options, run out of steam, get you stuck in a corner. So are you saying that you literally can replace fairly robust scripts with this visual?
It's really all scripts in the back end.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, so the question was, you've seen a lot of different visual type of orchestration automation, and a lot of times you're very limited by what you can do there. So I was asking whether this can really replace that. So in the end, in the background, it's really just all scripts in the background, so you can kind of in a hybrid fashion, right? You start with those blocks that are already pre-created and kind of visually, like this creates a VM, right? And that's your visual thing, but in the background, it's all scripts. And then you can add your own script there, or customize that, or do whatever else. So you can best of both worlds, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's very scalable, and yeah, faster. All this good stuff. There's activity reports. You can see exactly what happened when, if there was errors, what the errors were. Get into that very quickly. There is a component here where you can install for on-prem, because just like with Orchestrator, there's like a worker component. So you have like a one runbook, typically designer, you create the runbooks and everything, but something has to actually run it and continue down the process. Because the process is, it could take an hour or more. You've got to wait for something. Go do step 1, 2, wait until this is done, then go to step 3. So something has to keep track of all that stuff. That's what a worker would be. And with this solution, you can actually install a hybrid worker on-prem, so that all that work is happening on-prem, closest to those servers and where that's going on. In the cloud, there's all its own workers that are running in the background for you if you're using it, let's say, through Azure, so that you don't have to worry about standing up a worker for this if you're using like Azure services or VMs. So here's the dashboard. It shows how many runbooks you have, how many jobs are run. Everything is clickable. Just drill down, get more information, more insights about everything. So here's a couple automation scenarios here, just kind of get your minds thinking. Maybe for monitoring and remediation, right? You want to, as you're migrating to the cloud more and more, those production workloads start to fall under the governance of ITIL, and change management, incident management, release management, and IT teams that are used to automation has brought them with normal enterprise tools. But cloud systems are a little bit different, right? And they'll need more robust tools to develop in order to keep up with everything. So with monitoring and remediation, maybe you're adding your capacity automatically based on policies. So you have a web server farm or something, and once you get to 80% capacity on whatever metric you set for that, well, maybe stand up another one, right? And maybe you go the other direction too. Oh, we got down to like 50% capacity. Let's turn one off, right? So we're saving costs, but we're also scalable from performance and availability aspect here. You notify your users that are using their subscriptions that if their VMs have been running for a while, they haven't logged in. Say, hey, you need to turn off your VMs because you're costing the company money. And if you don't today, we're just going to turn it off anyway. So everything. You can do that as well. You think about change control and provisioning. Right? So if you do have third-party change control systems, you can actually integrate that into some of this. If something has changed that wasn't, maybe approved, that can be tracked, and you can take some action on that. Deploying applications, Git, running validation test, swapping for production if a test passes. So you can say, hey, run this test. This works. Just go ahead and just swap it right into production for me. Patching, updating without downtime, automatic generation of storage account keys. I mean, there's so many, and the sky's the limit. It honestly is. Sometimes that's the hardest part for me, is the sky's the limit. I don't even know where to start. Well, that's where those runbook gallery. I mean, start just browsing through that and see what's even possible, and it might give you some ideas, right? So automation of the portal is showing kind of, there's a couple more views here. We can test and publish runbooks and manage all those automation assets. So you'll see here, this looks like this is the modern or the new Azure portal, so that's kind of tied in as well. So availability here, we're going to rush through some of this stuff. It'll take a lot of time. Cloud-enabled protection. So this is very interesting. A lot of organizations we're talking to right now, both from a disaster recovery and backup solution. There's a way you can have automated virtual machine replication, actually even physical machine replication to virtual machines, and seamless integration with existing backups that you already have or recovery investments, and still have all the security and encryption that you need for it. And again, that is very simple and flexible. You can define your recovery plans of how you want everything to come back up once you have a disaster recovery scenario, and you can maximize your uptime by making sure that everything is healthy, with health assessments, and then protection of business critical data where it resides. So whether that's on-prem or whether that's in Azure, this can all protect other data. So let me paint a picture. So basically, this is any server you have. This can work for, I say, almost every server. Like physical servers, Windows, Linux, on-prem. You can have, whether you're running VMs on Hyper-V or VMware, replicating these servers and VMs to Azure. And the nuts and bolts of it is basically it's looking at all the changes on the disk, and it's sending those changes up to Azure to a virtual hard disk. That's just sitting up there and waiting, right? And when a disaster should happen, beforehand, of course, you set up your recovery plans. It's like, all right, well, this server is going to be this size, and it's going to be this size, and it needs to be having this IP address, and the DC has to start before the SQL server, and then wait for that until you put it on the web server, right? And you can have the same IP addresses, different IP addresses. There's a lot that you can do with it. But the idea, too, is that you can also isolate that environment and do a test. So actually test. Flip a button, hit the button, I want to do a test failover, and everything turns on. And through that process, you can watch everything come up, and it's there, and you can test. When you're done, hit a button, you throw it away. That easy. The time it takes is really just creating that recovery plan and making sure everything is done in the order that you want to. But DR testing is a nightmare in most cases. This makes it so much more easier and more palatable to deal with. So that's why we're seeing a lot of organizations really, really gravitate towards a solution. They really can improve your RTOs and RPOs, and like I said, their impact this disaster recovery drills. This is just a very interesting solution that's very unique, I think, in the marketplace. But not only that, you can do backups as well. So there's different methodologies of doing backups. You can have an agent on each of your servers, you can file level, and they're adding some database level backups. You can use DPM, another part of System Center, so Data Protection Manager, in order to first back up on-prem, so you have something local, very quick restore, and maybe 7 to 14 days there, but everything is also backed up to the cloud. So you always have 2 copies of your backups. And that's how you get rid of tapes. And in the cloud, how long retention do you need? Because it's up to like 10,000 years now. So I think that might cover everybody. That's just one of those things that it's very expensive to do on-prem or in another data center to have that much retention if you really needed that. So think about archive as well, right? So archiving your backups and not having to deal with those tapes. So there's dashboard for everything, right? So there's a dashboard for backup and recovery to see kind of what's happening, any errors that come up. So getting security, identifying missing system updates, malware status, getting security-related events, looking at fabric in general, and breaches. Identifying missing system updates across the cloud. You might use things like WSUS or Config Manager for your domain-joined Windows servers. Well, what do you do about your non-domain joined Windows servers? What do you do about your Linux servers? It's usually a little more difficult to deal with. Well, this can actually look at the status of your updates on your Linux servers, non-domain joined Windows servers, so across the board, whether they're in Azure, AWS, or on-prem. So you can at least get a comprehensive view of everything with the statuses of all the updates across your environment. But you can also take that one step further and automate that to remediate if they don't have the updates. You'll actually go out to Yum or go out to Windows Update Services and download those updates for you. Either add a trigger or you could run one, and it'll do it on a schedule. Collecting the security-related events from all the servers, or security logs, event logs, as well as other things you have, scenes, network security devices, all that good stuff, and putting one place. And it gives you some contextual information that Microsoft has from their digital crimes unit and their Microsoft, they call it the security intelligence graph. All these signals that they have, they actually can correlate that information with your information. Say, oh, that IP address, that's a known botnet. You know, how would you know that otherwise, right? It's right there, right in the log data. They combine it right there for you. So it can give you, an idea of what is your security posture, what major issues you need to know about, and threats. Giving you an idea from malware assessments, and do you have anti-malware on there? Is something been detected on your servers? And giving you a quick and easy view there. That system update assessment as well. That's huge. So that's kind of those are the pillars, right? And like I said, I had to go through quickly, and there's a lot of depth there. One thing you can do, you go home and you can try this on your own if you have an Azure subscription. You don't, get a free trial, you have MSDN. You can sign up for this. It's literally 3 clicks. You go to Microsoft.com/OMS, try it for free. You just have to sign in with a Microsoft account, you use it for your Azure subscription, create a workspace. You're there. You're done. You got it. So what you get for free, and the free trial is mainly on the log analytics, which is a big portion of this. It's an unlimited time frame. It's not like a normal free trial. You got 30 days and you're done, right? This is unlimited time frame that you have this. Now, it will only ingest 500 megabytes a day. Sorry. It'll only analyze 500 megabytes a day. You can set it as much data as you want. Just the first 500 megabytes, it will actually be ingested and put into the logs for analytics. Because storage is cheap, really cheap in the cloud. It's the computing that costs a little bit more. So from a free trial, they're limiting the processing of that. You can turn on the pay-as-you-go version, and they will ingest all that data. They'll keep it for even like the last 30 days, I believe, beyond the 500 megabytes. So if you say, I want to flip it over to the paid version of it, they'll actually go back in time to that data and reprocess all that up to date. So you can make an easy transition and get all that data. So this is pretty cool stuff, yeah.
Yeah, back up one.
Mm-hmm.
When it says create a new Azure subscription, right now I'm working with an Azure trial.
Yep, you can do a link to an existing one as well.
Okay, but this is not to give me another trial for Azure or anything.
No, this is like this is an Azure service,
Mm-hmm.
so you just need to have some sort of Azure subscription already or a new one in order to turn it on, right? That's the same way that you're going to log in, just do that Azure subscription. Good question, though. And there's 3 ways to send data OMS. You can do it through, like I said, Operations Manager. It's actually a management pack in Operations Manager. You say, I want to turn that on. It sends a management pack out to all your agents, and then you just point to the workspace, and it'll start grabbing all that data that's coming us down and also send it up to Operations Manager. So we give you a lot more information with best practices and that type of thing. OMS clients, so you can push out the OMS client directly, just MSI, right onto your servers. What's interesting about Azure VMs is that can be part of your resource template. You can actually just turn it on in your resource template. It just gets installed as an extension into that VM. So even less friction there for that. Azure storage account, so that's where you can put all of your events, throw them all up in the Azure storage account. It will ingest all that information from you from there. And then even from AWS storage is going to be coming soon. If you're already in the Azure portal, you can go and go to New and Management, Log Analytics. In that same place, you go create a workspace there, and you can select those different tiers. It's not hard to tell, but on the bottom there, so the free tier shows 500 megabytes in the 7 days data retention. So they'll keep everything for 7 days. The standard, they'll keep everything for 30 days, so you get unlimited daily upload and ingestion limit. And then with premium, they keep everything for up to a year. Okay? You pay different per gigabyte cost per the amount of data that you set up when you do standard or premium. So just be aware of that.
And that can add up quickly.
It can. So you gotta keep your eye on that.
Yeah.
Keep your eye on that.
There's system logs from all the computers that you're already collecting from SCOM. You don't realize how much there is, and then your bandwidth gets kind of consumed sending it up, and then it takes a lot of money.
Yeah. So you want to
be mindful.
Good planning, right? Do some planning on that. Might not want to turn everything on all at once, but incrementally turn on some more logging, that type of thing. Advanced storage accounts. So just real quickly, just give you an idea of how this all works, and how you would go about getting this and paying for all the different versions here. To give you an idea, you can do pay as you go. There's if you have a monetary commit with your Azure subscription through your organization, this can count towards that. So you can buy each of these different nodes kind of separately, right? So inside analytics, you can do per node. This is a new concept here, right? With our System Center on-prem was licensed per host. You say like if data center, everything on that host is covered from a management server license. Or if the standard version, you can do up to 2 like operating system environments, I think they call them, within that host if you have like a very small density type of thing. But this is per node, so every node is a VM or a physical server or a network device, let's say you're pulling data in from, right? So $15 per node, inside analytics, $10 per node, automation control. So you can mix and match however you want to do here. If you do go with an annual commit with your enterprise agreement, you actually do get the associated System Center management license that comes with that. So if you don't already have System Center, all of a sudden you get SCOM licenses for those nodes if you purchase like this as analytics. You do that annual commit. And you see kind of like match the System Center pieces, components match kind of what you're doing in LMS in a way. Now this is where is the value, and this is where a lot of organizations are starting to see. I mean, you can probably do some of the math here and you see how much this makes sense. You can have an entire suite for that node, an E1 or an E2. If you're looking at just backup and disaster recovery by itself, you're paying $10 and then $25 a node, so $35 a month. With OMS E2, it's $35 a node, but you can get everything and all the System Center licenses for that node. So that's what we're seeing a lot of customers start going that direction. Any questions?
What would the server auditing logical nodes?
You said what's the auditing?
The auditing, yeah, changes.
Oh, the auditing change control. That one would be, that one's automation and control. Yep. Yep. Any question?
Is there any additional charge for the backups that you're accumulating?
Good question. So yes, so the backup covers the per protected instance, and then you just have to pay for the storage on the back end for whatever retention that you're doing.
Is it deduplicated or not?
Is it right now? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I know they changed something there. So yeah, that is deduplicated.
It's very difficult to tell how much space it's going to take, but it is deduplicated.
And from a recovery point perspective, they just asked about backups, is it deduplicated? It does, if you guys know, grandfather, father, son, right? Where you keep a lot of recovery points in the short term, and then it might be like multiple times a day, and then a week later, a month later, you're only keeping maybe daily, and then you're keeping only like once a week, and then you're keeping once a month. So it can do that type of recovery point kind of cleanup in a way, for you to minimize the cost. So you're not keeping like multiple daily backups for everything like all the way through. That definitely will help reduce that cost. And then for site recovery, the only other cost really is the compute cost. When you bring everything up, then you start paying for that compute there in terms of those VMs actually running. So when you're doing a failover test, yes, you will pay for that compute while it's running. But like I said, you tear it down, and there's no more ongoing cost for that compute. And of course, the actual failover, the same situation, right? You'll be paying for the compute. So that's where the per node cost really helps you out there, because it protects you somewhat of overages. So yeah, that's only with you when you have a EA. And you have to, because you have to do a kind of a pre-commit and say, I have this many servers, and I'm going to pay for this on my EA, and we cover. Interesting thing is, if you already have System Center, there's incremental licenses here. That's actually less money per node, because you're already paying for some of that. So there's, in the meantime, until you get your new EA renewal, you just pay it incrementally more, and you probably switch over to an OMS model completely if the new EA that comes up. So I know it's technocrowd and everything like that, but just gives you an idea that this is not super crazy expensive, and it adds a lot of value, right? So definitely something to look into. So any other questions anybody has? If you can't think of any right now, feel free to reach out to me later on.
I have a question.
Yes, sure, go for it.
For SSCM today, the way we have it set up, right? We have a huge network. We have distribution points and multiple remote sites, right?
Yep.
Is that architecture will remain the same, and the analytics in the cloud, is this what's the best practice to start?
Yep, so the question over here is, you already have a config manager in your environment, and it's pretty complex, got a lot of servers involved. How does this really interact with that? So you would still keep config manager. This would definitely not be a replacement for that. You can do, like in the cloud, a lot of stuff with building servers and doing automation, orchestrating VM, like creation, right? But on the client side especially, there's not really a great solution besides, and you start talking about something like Intune, EMS, right? That starts becoming kind of compelling for a lot of different scenarios. I'm not going to say it's 100% parity yet, but it's a better together type of situation at that point. Yep. And just so everybody knows, and I'll post this up on the meetup as this comes out if everybody's interested. So I'm in the middle of a webinar series right now. I kind of already did this piece in a webinar already. And because of the depth of all these subjects, I'm going to have another 4 parts of the webinar series. So backup and recovery is coming up next, because that's definitely top of mind for everybody. So I will post that up on the meetup. Check that out. It's happening, because Hannah knows what date that is. He said April. No, April 13th.
April 13th. Look at that memory.
Right, there you go.
Good job.
Thursday, April 13th, we'll be doing that one. So check the meetup. I'll make sure we post it out there if you guys are interested. Just go on deeper, because there's a lot to talk about. So
You're saying on meetup.com, right?
Yep.
With this group, you're going to post that info. Okay.
you got it. Yep. Like I said, everybody's not on the meetup already. Get on there, just look for Smog. I think you'll find it. Otherwise, let us know and we'll get you an invite there. All right. All right. Well, thanks everybody. We'll, break here for 5 minutes. So go ahead and hit up the restrooms, grab more to eat, something to drink. We'll get back here, let's say 6:40. We'll get started again. I didn't go too badly, did I?
No. How do can I make this smaller when he's presenting? Smaller? So, yeah, that orange one. Oh, you can drag it over to the side. Okay. I'm going to move this up here because I think he's using my computer.
Okay, and, oh, yeah, okay.
Yep. What?
No, you're good. I was thinking you were
projecting it to another screen, in
Oh,
which
no,
case
no.
you can get rid of that toolbar.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to
You can start.
get ready, we're going to start the next presentation.
You want to talk a little bit about the group and the board?
Oh, sure. And I guess while we're getting ready, so as we mentioned, so a lot of the information available to the group is posted on the Meetup site. And we are looking for volunteers to kind of be on the board, which kind of sounds a bit scary, but really it's just helping organize. So there's a lot of little things that need to get done to help organize these meetups. So whether that's planning the presenters, helping organize the presenters and the topics that we're going to talk about, social media, helping with sponsors. There's a lot of different things that are involved to help organize this event. So if that's something that you might be interested, please let myself know or make a little note on the registration page, and we can reach out to you because we're hoping to get really the community involved. We don't want this to just be Microsoft and Cortec. We want you all to be involved with this too, really to make it community based. So, but again too, we are raffling off an Amazon or AMC gift card, so you can go see a movie. But yeah, we'll get the next presentation started.
Good evening, everyone. I think we are after our day work. We come here and we're all tired. So I want to introduce myself. I'm Hazem Barghouti. I'm responsible for network and security at Yazaki North America. We will talk about Yazaki and I will introduce you, but the subject we were talking about is express routes. We are a huge company with a huge wide area network, and our challenges are not for a small business or 5 sites within the U.S. We're talking about a huge amount. So I want you to bear with me and think how big is our issues and our challenges to get to express route. I would like to have this discussion Q&A more than just slides. Okay, I am not here selling you any marketing or telling you what technology is better than others, except I get direction says, hey, we need to get to the Azure in the network, prepare us to that, and this is exactly what I'm just walking you through my steps here. Jeremy is going to help me with the challenges at the end because when he showed up, start bringing problems to me. So I'm going to give him all the challenges that he worked out in our environment. He will resolve it, and we'll go from there. So what Yazaki, or what should I do here? Click. Okay. In Yazaki, we are split into 3 entities. You got the Americas, and we got Europe, and we have Asia. So the amount of countries that we cover is huge. I am not responsible for the entire thing, thanks God. I'm only responsible for the Americas, basically, from a security and network. As you can see, what our company does, if you're not familiar with a wire harness, is basically all the wiring from the tail light to the engine, all that wiring we do. And the other one is we collect all the sensors and the data. In the vehicle, we do that, and at the same time, we do all your display units, all your speedometers for several OEMs. Like I said, Yazaki as a global footprint is huge, and I will focus on the Americas. We have 106 sites in 10 countries and 78,000 employees. These are the automotive customers that we serve. You could tell that we can say literally we are 50% of the entire world as far as wire harness. and we serve multiple customers in multiple continents. So in Yazaki itself, if you exclude South America, we are responsible for, we call it Yazaki North America and Central America, and we are responsible for Mexico, Nicaragua, El Salvador, and some South America sites. Basically, from security point of view, we are responsible for it, and this is how our footprints. So today I want to talk to you about what is ExpressRoute, why Yazaki needs ExpressRoutes, because maybe a lot of you guys went with a VPN tunnel and says, hey, I'm connected to Azure, I don't need anything else, right? And then when ExpressRoute should be considered, when you should consider it, and how ExpressRoute can be deployed. We will talk about two solutions that I looked at and which one I picked. And like I said, Jeremy is going to talk about the challenges that we have. So as a definition, ExpressRoute basically is ability for you to access Azure or Office 365 within your network. You are not going through the internet, but within your network, you will be connected to Azure or Office 365. So if you are concerned about security, if you are concerned about latency, if you're concerned about ability to send data and only data that is not accessible from the internet, ExpressRoute is the solution that you should look at. The first thing is we wanted to extend our data center. This is why we need it, and those are the driver basically. And our criteria is that the remote site should not come to the data center and being able to talk to Azure or Office 365. They need to talk to Azure and Office 365 directly. So we don't need to go through the data center. That's for redundancy point of view. And of course, a very strong SLA versus internet is down, ISP is down, and all that stuff. And these happen. I know our internet reliability is up nowadays, but we need it a little bit higher than that, especially for some applications. And then we want it to be secure, because honestly, there's sometimes as a big company, they will tell you this should not be accessible from the internet. They don't care how secure protocol that you're putting in the network, that you're taking over the like VPN tunnel and encryption or whatever. That doesn't mean anything to them. That's accessible from the internet. So that's a solution for us. And we want it to be burst on demand, because I really don't want to pay a huge amount of money for the carrier and then just sit on it. And sometimes we'll use it and the users are not using it, and in the weekend. So we need it to be flexible. By the way, I could take questions anytime. I mean, this is a Q&A and we want it to be interactive. Go ahead.
Office 365, you mentioned a number of times.
Yes.
Is that basically for Excel and Access, or what is Office 365 used for in your organization?
Okay, so the question is, what is Office 365 is used in our organization? Where SharePoint Online is Office 365. Exchange Online is Office 365. Yammer is Office 365, right? So anything that services from Microsoft that does not, you cannot build a server in it, that is Office 365. Azure is something that you could build a server, you could touch it, you could manage it. However, you could manage some Exchange as a service. So basically the services that we have in Office 365. Anybody want to add to Office 365? What else? BI, right? Office 365. Right.
Excel, Word, PowerPoint, Access, Microsoft Teams.
Excel, basically a client in the cloud, right? All our Microsoft Visio in the cloud. all these services on Office 365, that you don't have to build a specific server for it to access to it.
To express the Azure side, the Office 365 side of that. The Office 365 side, Microsoft became very, very, very regulated, like restricted with that. Because not only does it actually make things better, it actually makes things work. Like they had a company central.
Yeah.
You know,
I have a slide, I will talk about that, Chris. I mean, which is, I think the comment is the Microsoft entrance to Office 365 from a network point of view is very restrictive, and they recommend all the way to use the internet. Do not come through anything else. But some carriers, they went through a lot of certification, and I'll guarantee you that, and you'll see that, to become redundant so that Microsoft allowed them to carry Office 365 traffic. And I will show you. These are good questions. Go ahead.
A different question is when you were talking about that you wanted all of your remote locations to be able to get to Azure through Express Route.
Right.
Did they have enough points of presence around the various locations in order to enable that? I can imagine, like right here, it's probably not a big deal, but maybe, I don't know, some factory in the middle of Nebraska or something.
Okay, well, the question is, in the remote sites, to access to Azure or Express Route, the point of presence and ability for them to connect. This is basically, Express Route is nothing but connecting your private network to Azure and Office 365. And I will show you how. So if you have already locations like in Mexico and Nicaragua, and you aggregate those to your network, you could connect your network directly to Office 365. The point I was trying to make is I don't want my remote site to come to my data center to get to Office 365, to get to SharePoint online, I want them to go directly from my network, from my cloud. In our case, we have...
I got all that from that question.
Right.
I had a question that had nothing to do with any of that.
Yeah.
This is strictly Express Route,
Point.
Azure, or remote locations.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with O365. I get why you do that different.
It depends about the carrier you're dealing with who's servicing the express route. So like if you have AT&T, you have level 3, they have a huge amount of point of presence that they could aggregate your traffic through their network and bring you back to the Office 365.
I thought I have a slide or two in the challenges section.
About that.
Talking about, I think talks about that. How you could go deeper there.
Yeah.
So they're going off the MPLS private network, and they're peering directly with the Azure.
Right.
So you're going through that ICT network, like you're on that highway.
Without going back to this central data set.
Yes.
Well, it's less about how you connect with Azure and more about how you configure your own. As long as you're on a fully matched central network, you can connect to Microsoft.
Got it.
There's multiple points of presence for Microsoft.
Go ahead, please. How many what?
Carriers.
I evaluated 2 carriers, and I will show you. There's both solutions. They both provide good solution. Actually, I could not, and with good prices.
They're the ones that are giving you usage.
Yes. Go ahead.
I know you've got it the next level slide.
Okay, so when we should consider, like I said, large enterprise, scale deployment, private security is important to you. That's when you use it. And the dynamic failover in your network, you could extend it to these services. The fear of my CIO is, okay, we will take things to the cloud, and then suddenly you tell me the cloud is up and then all our servers are up, but the network is down. So what did we do, right? So we can talk. Maybe I need to be very careful about time, but the preparation for the network for a size of our company would require a lot of time to be ready for the cloud, because everybody tells you, oh, well, you need an internet connection. But if I want to do an internet connection in every location and put in a firewall in every location and protect everything in every location, it will take me 3 or 4 years just before I even finish that project. So the complexity gets so tough, and then you need to start thinking about a strategy. How do you take your company to be ready in the architectures of your network to be ready for the cloud? Besides, we went through a lot of analysis, a lot of tools to estimate how much traffic we need and all that stuff. That was done a year and a half ago. The carriers we looked at is AT&T and Level 3. And basically they are, in my opinion, they are the most mature carriers. I'm not an AT&T guy, I'm not a Level 3 guy, but I think they have a very, very solid solution, and it is a cloud friendly. Okay, this is the slide I would like to spend some time, is how you connect your network. Your network is the AVPN is your MPLS network. So that's as a fully meshed network. You connect multiple sites to it, and this is exactly our network. Once from your AVPN, basically what you do, you create, in order for them to allow you to connect to Office 365, you have to do this. It's not optional. You cannot say I can connect only 2 VPNs. You have to have 4 VPNs, 2 VPNs for Azure, 2 VPNs for Office 365. So every carrier has to be a fully redundant before connect to Microsoft. And that redundancy is not a joke for them from a certification point of view. Go ahead.
That's a Microsoft requirement, not yours.
Not me, right. So before they are allowed to sell Azure/Office 365 services, they have, in their point of presence, they have to show all these redundancy, because basically Microsoft point is, if I am a 99.9%, my carrier, my connection needs to be 99.9%. No, yeah, we'll talk about that. But this is, I want to show you the two solutions, how they are a little bit different. In my case, AT&T and Level 3, they can provide you both layer 2 or layer 3 solution. In my case, I wanted a layer 3 solution. And the reason I want a layer 3 solution is because I don't want to aggregate everything to my data centers and take it out, or a specific location, and I have to worry about it. So all my routing, basically I create a big, huge subnet, give it to those cloud guys, and then I said, you use this for your servers, you slice it, you dice it, whatever, and this 172xxxx, that's going to be yours. And then suddenly from any site, if anybody want to go to that 172xxxx, is going to go through, basically, if it's Azure, goes through this VPN, and if it's Office 365, and he's going to talk about some of the challenges I ran into, because Office 365, in this case, will introduce you or broadcast some routes. These routes are identified for SharePoint, identified for Yammer. All these are going into your network, and your users are directly using this route to connect to these services. Is there any question here? Ton? Okay, go ahead.
You keep talking about Azure and Office 365, this application being 2 different connection requirements.
Right.
That's being imposed by Microsoft. Yet Microsoft tells us, no, Office 365 and Azure are basically the same thing. So it's just basically saying that, no, they're not. And the issue here is down in the network connection.
Okay.
I'm asking,
Yeah, the question is Azure and Office 365 is the same thing, right? That's, I mean, and accessibility for it, right?
yeah, that's it.
Right.
I understand, because, so Office 365 services are run especially on Azure, and on Azure, and that, but the difference with that is that Office 365 is a multi-tenant service, it's shared with many other tenants, right? So the point of presence is like, of getting to it, routing to it, it's actually shared URL, a lot of that, and for like Office.com, but Azure, your own Azure scripting is a single tenant.
Yeah.
Right, so I think that's really the key factor. There are different places where that is good. And Office 365 is a deal of redundant service as well that can have automatic pull-up available to other different areas. So there's a lot of that deal redundancy built into that. But that's why they keep the routing a little bit separate. Because it's kind of like a private routing directly to your Azure tenant versus getting into the multi-tenant.
Okay. I think to answer your question very in a simple format, without saying, well, multi-tenant, not tenant, or Azure basically is your extension of your data center. So you have ability to build server and do whatever you want to do, run whatever you want to do in the cloud with Azure. Now, in Office 365, you think about it, you could run services from Microsoft, and it's a service-based. So you want to run Exchange Online, you go to them and you say, okay, this is my services, I need to run Exchange Online, and you run it in Office 365 rather. Now, the Azure and Office 365 connectivity is a complete Microsoft backbone that is connected together within it. That's correct as far as from inside between Azure and Office 365. But how to access to Azure and how to access to Office 365, they are two different access points. Does that? Okay.
But why did I have it run on if I use express route to make a connection through a carrier into Azure? I wouldn't have issues with going to Office 365 because internal to Microsoft, they take care of that. But you're saying, no, you don't.
Yeah, different parents. So there's Microsoft parent, which is where the Office 365 level is. I run into this with other clients who want to integrate their one online with some on-prem resources, just weren't able to do it. Just think of Azure and Office 365. Office 365 obviously sits theoretically on top of Azure.
Yeah.
Azure is kind of the link.
We're talking reality.
It's different problems. When we talk about our cloud, we talk about it as three products. So the Azure cloud is compute and storage, right? And that you can buy the service. So infrastructure as a service, platform as a service.
Yeah.
Office 365 is software as a service. That you're subscribing to a software service that may run on Azure infrastructure, but it's not integrated with Azure infrastructure. It's not integrated with the Azure cloud. And then the third part of that is Dynamics 365, which is our CRM and those products. So we treat them, we call our cloud the Microsoft cloud, but there's really three separate functions there. They don't necessarily communicate directly with one another. Right? So Azure is the platform, and that Office 365 runs on, but they're not integrated.
So basically what we have done, we connected our network to Azure and Office 365 with redundancy, with two 10 gig connection backbone from AT&T, and we extended all our private IP addresses through this, and it's already netted from that end of when the connection. Those two clouds here is A is Azure, and the green one is basically Office 365. this is another same thing. Basically, that's what we have done. And we, as if like two different routes, basically one for Azure, one for Office 365. Office 365, the difference too, when you connect to Office 365 through ExpressRoute, Office 365 will send to the carrier all the routes for all these services. So you know that instead of going through the public, you could go through ExpressRoute and you will be connecting to these services to Office 365. The other solution is level 3 connectivity. It was layer 2 solution. Both AT&T and level 3 provide the same solutions. However, because my network is not from level 3, it's from AT&T, it was easier for us to all we do is just put another node and connect our Azure and Office 365 to that MPLS, and everything has got connected to the network.
I think I heard earlier somebody said use level 3 as your secondary, but you don't.
No. But I'll get back to that.
Yeah.
Yes, I read. So the second solution I looked at is level 3 from a solution. They will give you a layer 2 fiber connection. You put it in your data center, and they connect you back to level 3 network, and they are connected the same way with redundancy to both Azure and Office 365. If you are a small enterprise, this is a very good solution. That's not a problem. But if you have a lot of sites, such as Nicaragua, and you don't want to go through one data center, then this is not the right solution for you. Now, if we're talking about redundancy, I think I had this is here. It's just like if I can go back. The point I'm trying to make, my network is fully meshed. So for redundancy, I don't have any problems as far as from one side connecting to these services. So this is not my issue. My other backup in the remote sites are coming through a VPN or DMVPN. We're using a Cisco routers that connected directly to our backup. So we're using the internet as a backup. Now, the majority of our traffic for ExpressRoute is server-to-server connectivity, the majority of it. The rest of it, all clients, the way I designed the network, I had 5 internet hubs between Central America and North America. Those internet hubs, they have dual firewall, dual URL filtering, and threat protection, and they connect to bigger pipe to the internet. All this work was done a year and a half ago in preparing for cloud solution. Once we have done that, I am capable now of, a client in Mexico that connect to SharePoint doesn't need to come through my MPLS to ExpressRoute to go to Office 365. They go directly to the internet. But for any reason, if the internet is down, ExpressRoute is always available. That's as a second route. So I'm advertising it as a second route. So now, the way your question is what is your backup to ExpressRoute? But I'm telling you from my users, the ExpressRoute can be my backup for my internet connectivity.
Is the internet really your backup when something's going wrong with AT&T?
Yes.
You fall back to that, then all your users keep going.
Yes.
Okay.
Completely backup, and every remote site, it either has an MPLS connection plus an internet. And if it has 2 internet, they have 2 different internet ISPs. So all this redundancy, local loops redundancy, central office redundancy, and this is running a large network is sometimes all the redundancy. So in order to preserve some time, I will let, talking about challenges?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Introduce yourself, Jeremy, first.
hi, I'm Jeremy Pavlov. I work for Cortex Services, and Hazem
He bugs me a lot. Yes, has been gracious enough to tell you. He's my pain point, guys. He's my server guy who says it's the network, and I prove it to him it's not the network. Fair enough. And of course, we did the last Azure user group, and Hazem had come along, and he's like, wow, we have a story to tell. Some of the challenges we faced and some of the things. So I should point out that a lot of what Hazem just described about the infrastructure, internet-based and failover, has to do with the fact that their model is applications that are moving to the cloud to service end users around the globe, so that they would have fast and nearby accessibility to the applications through Microsoft's backbone from wherever they are in the globe. That was kind of the challenge, or the design intention. So the challenges we faced along the way, we had lots of them. I'm going to get in a couple of design ones, but I want to give you a couple of tips also. When you're dealing with ExpressRoute, Yazaki's in an interesting place. They have the premium add-on. There's, just like everything else in the services you buy in Azure, there's the basic, there's the baby, the middle bear, and the papa bear, or whatever, the different sizes. There you go. And in this case, there's standard ExpressRoute and premium add-ons. And then it also is tied to how much, remember we were talking about the bandwidth allocation. Mm-hmm. So things like, how many routes can I have in Azure? My design in Azure, how complex is my Azure IaaS infrastructure going to be? With ExpressRoute, you've got to be mindful of how many routes you're permitted in general via standard versus premium, and then by your kilobits allocation that you're paying for off the bat. So it's a combination, and there's tables about how to come up with those numbers. You got to be mindful of that. Then you got to talk about limits. You can often in Azure get limits lifted when you run into ceilings like that. So, I'm sorry. Sure. So one of my nodes can support by the carrier, because on MPLS they own our routers, right? So they put in 1,500 limit of routes. When we introduced ExpressRoute, we jumped into almost like 3,000 routes. So that router went dead, basically, and we start, losing routes and all that stuff, and then we had to back out of ExpressRoute, because that's the last change we did. And then we kept digging deep to find out, yes, we have a limitation on it. So that's a trick for you guys. I think our user group here is not going to be talking about marketing anymore. We need to start talking about the challenges. What did you guys do to fix things? Bring in like even a 2-minute trick that everybody learn from it. That's what I think a user group should be about, not about every new tools or whatever. I mean, because the cloud is so big and it's so hard, but some little tricks that somebody ran into it as a user group, we could learn from it, so that we could just stick in our mind. If I want to deploy this, I want to make sure ExpressRoute routes is an issue. You need to think about that. Go ahead. Yeah, and route control. I mean, what Hazem said a moment ago about the users accessing it via the internet, that and all of Yazaki's system traffic being on ExpressRoute. We very much have struggled with this since that's our plan, exactly as you described. But you run into issues where, okay, it's Active Directory replication across that ExpressRoute. It's server backend file transfers, because maybe the server grabs something or writes something to a database. But guess what? Even Hazem says constantly, other people, users will find the path. And so while you're telling them, hey, we're presenting this front end for you to get to this, and it's awesome, and it's great because it goes everywhere in the world to it, next thing you know, it's like, we're just going to transfer those files into that folder this way. And next thing you know, your predictions for your ExpressRoute are getting gobbled up. So you got to be mindful of that. You've got to have intentions, blocks, standards, all that stuff. The next bullet I want to mention. Let me give them a good story here from the field. Yeah. So I have an engineer in Mexico, and our quality of service is always for a real-time protocol is high. I mean, this is our first packet goes through. We don't truncate. We don't even queue. So that's the best way to do it. So they figured out that if I do copy file to file or file to server, it takes too long, right? So they start attaching while they go to desktop, and they attach the file as if like a presentation. And then I'm allowing my Skype traffic is before is what is linked,
Yeah.
right? So when we were linked, you could share files, and we had that feature turned on. So they stopped sending files through copy or FTP, and they start sharing that file. And my network goes really bad that day, and I have no idea what's going on. It took us 2 weeks to figure that out. And that's the point that he's saying is like the users will figure a way to work around the stuff that you give them, especially when you're talking about we have more than 1,200 engineers that working for us who are sometimes they're teaching us about IT, tell you the truth. So we have smart users.
When did you guys implement Espresso? How long ago?
When is it, Jerry?
It's approaching.
It was 9 months.
Yeah, it's just less than a year.
Yes.
And you were actually able to get Espresso out for Office 365 and Azure?
Yeah. Oh, you just call Microsoft. I'm not kidding you. They literally are.
Like, I've given this
Oh,
speech
wow.
about what to choose and all this, and it was probably about 8 or 9 months ago, and we were told, oh, you can't include Office 365 or slides.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm.
They restricted, they say there's 2 reasons they'll allow you to do it. Is either they're having really bad latency or drop packets, voice, video, or they have government published government regulations. Like you do it. I think you guys slipped in right before.
Or you're a powerful international automotive global company with influence.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I have no idea.
So you're saying
Seriously, I have
now
no
only
idea.
Express Route is for Azure? Is that your point? Okay, so that's something you guys could learn from that. Okay.
Didn't know. Just learn.
Yeah, you have a question?
What about the Cisco of the world in your problem? Because I'm thinking, massive amounts of data in the next 2 years. And it's going to choke some of those routers just as they come in.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
So let me summarize your question. Are you saying the remote site amount of data traffic and bandwidth bottlenecks, or we're talking about hardware bottlenecks? What are we talking about? Okay, both? Okay. Well, all right. Hear it from me. Yeah. Yeah, if you look in any network architectures that Microsoft tells you, right, it will tell you that you need to design your network around the flexibility of 18 months to 3 years just to cover the hardware life cycle. So what I mean by that, if you have a router that can get you to 200, 100, or 1 gig, you could start with 200, but in 18 or 3 years, you're going to get to 1 gig. But don't put in the network a router that it's giving you just 100 meg throughput, and then you're saying, okay, well, I have a 50 meg right now, because after a year, you need to change the hardware. So scalability, yes, scalability was under our consideration. That's one. Two, if you are a network person that coming in and you're thinking that you're going to remain on MPLS and running your network, you are wrong. Because in reality, even Cisco, when you look at their strategic direction, intelligent WAN, they are leveraging the internet. Microsoft is telling you, use the internet. Don't even worry about this, right? So you have to leverage the internet, and you reduce your costs, and you're being able to expand your internet bandwidth to whatever you want as you go. The challenge I had is I don't have the time. If you come and tell me it's not working and I need more bandwidth, I don't have the time to change my hardware, order a circuit from MPLS from AT&T and wait for 2 months and all that stuff. So we put the scalability in our internet service provider so that we can go. Yesterday we went from 100 meg to 200 meg in our Canton office in Comcast, and all I paid is $400 extra. However, I didn't change anything. The switches are the same. They called us. They says, okay, it went to 200 meg. We changed the bandwidth, and it was up and running in 200 megs tonight. So
I want to point one thing out, though.
Right.
Part of the design is, I want to reiterate, that he's got internet presence
Yes.
all over the globe. So he sends his users out to the internet from regionally where they are to cut down on that interconnected traffic across his infrastructure, because it is a valid concern. So he advertises the service out in Azure. Those users just pop out of Nicaragua, heading across the internet, and enter, if we've designed the service right, it enters at the nearest Azure, what we call it, our own data centers, inside a Azure-based data center. So it's closest to them, and entering into Microsoft and arriving across that way. It's sort of the back door through the internet, kind of, a greased pipe through the Microsoft tunnel, if you will. That's how we did it. So real quick, so the challenges we face, another one is cutting over from the VPN. Like all the stuff, everybody starts with a VPN. And we piloted some applications a year and change ago now, things that were really the driving factors for Azure. And the VPN was okay, but wow, did we run into all kinds of challenges with VPNs and Cisco's with the non-route. I'm not even going there. Checkpoints with the IKE 1 versus IKE 2 and the craziness there, and not being able to route within the infrastructure. It's be careful and understand what version of VPN you're going to implement, and don't just let your firewall guy set it up without guidance.
yes.
You have to make sure, because they'll set up IKE version 1 and you'll have one path and one route and you'll be trapped. Anyway, that's that. So, and then we tore that down and implemented ExpressRoute to get past that. Visibility and monitoring has been a huge challenge. I actually added a thing in a moment to talk about. We left click.
But one of my visibility, if you are a Cisco person, you run into you look at the link and you say, hey, I want to see the net flow. I want to look at this, all that stuff, right? AT&T created a very nice portal for us. In that
battery's running low.
Okay, in the portal. In the portal, they put in ability for you to see how many traffic or data that you have utilized, but there's not a lot of monitoring that we are used to as a network team to say, I want to know who is my highest usage, who whatever. And I'm thinking about it, that AT&T is going to bring this up later on, because they are exactly truly a cloud solution as a portal. I could go into that portal and I could increase my own bandwidth, basically by myself, without me calling AT&T. And on the 28th of that, every month, we go and review how much we spend, and then we could adjust it basically before that, because if we don't do that or we exceed it, we will get hit. So the trick we learned that do not go with a higher bandwidth in ExpressRoute, because you cannot go backward.
That is a good tip. That is a
That's a tip.
money-saving
So
tip.
don't say to your boss, says, I think I need half a gig of ExpressRoute. That's going to be a suicide for you. Use that 50 meg, 100 meg, see what you're doing, and then after that, you could adjust it as you need.
But like I said, watch out for those restrictions based on the size you choose and the routes and other limits. Okay, visibility and monitoring was historically not a great thing. I'd like to say this is where it's starting to turn the corner. But before we get there, actually, I put this in here real quick to talk about those limitations. So number of VNet links. This is just an example how it goes standard and premium columns here, and then depending on the circuit size, the numbers change. And you're like, well, that's interesting, and that's kind of what I was explaining. It's just an example of all the different networking facets that normally if you just hooked up a Cisco, in your infrastructure, it kind of does what it does until it chokes. Well, like everything in Azure, you get limits on what you implement to start with based on some criteria. So here, I threw this in. I scrubbed this design. This was a very early drawing of how we were going to get around the globe using VPNs. And I say early because this is before I realized that they had ExpressRoute Premium add-on. And this was the way we were going to have to do it. My incorrect assumption, but I thought it was entertaining to look at.
Told you guys it's not the network, but he blamed the network for like 2 weeks.
Me and others, by the way.
Yeah. And Microsoft SCs too.
Yeah, kind of.
Yes.
Until one Microsoft SE hero came and saved the day, but that's another story.
Yeah.
Anyway, they had a single cloud link ExpressRoute, which again, and to connect Japan and West US and East US with two different. Yeah, since this drawing, of course, peering, VNet peering came in and all kinds of cool things. But this is a year ago. This is what you had to do without ExpressRoute Premium a year ago, because Japan, you've got, if you don't have Premium, you have limitations in ExpressRoute for how far you can extend your ExpressRoute out. And so you got to be mindful there. Well, that's getting the design right, number 2. Again, a scrubbed version of the design. Now, here's how we did it right. Because it's Premium, we can go outside the region to Japan directly with an ExpressRoute. So now all of these, as we call them, data centers, there's not Microsoft data centers. These are Yazaki's data centers inside of Azure that we built in a space. We call them data, and they home run back to their main infrastructure. And so today, we were talking about paths and redundancy and access to things. So imagine this scenario: a person in Japan who's just surfing the internet, hitting Google. They're hitting a Google nearby. They hit some other website. It could be in US. But then they hit their important work at Yazaki. And that important work is using a traffic manager, which recognizes, hey, you're in Japan, and you want to hit this traffic manager URL. Aha, I'm going to send you to the most very nearby data center entry point where we have a gateway waiting and listening inside of Japan. So they're actually hopping from their PC in a cafeteria to that traffic balanced input into the tunnel, and then they go under the Pacific or through the Pacific via Microsoft's backbone to where the application they're interested in really resides somewhere in the West Coast.
So if you put application gateway at the data center,
I did.
each resource group?
Yes.
Okay.
And we've taken that model and we've extended it, and I'm not going to tell you any of the specifics, but the various applications that we've done and are looking to do additionally, we're trying to always say, can we disperse the entry point in some way? Because as he said, a multi-region and a corporation where most of their users are kind of over there, kind of over here, and kind of in the West US-ish.
To reduce the latency issues. Right?
Yes.
This is the
Because, yeah, I'll just say yes. Some are, some aren't. How's that? But they're load balanced across the globe. So if Japan went down, in some cases the East is there. Yes, West in this case. But here's the thing: it's a striking difference in performance, for what it's worth, going from Japan and across Microsoft's backbone than it is going, well, who knows how, around the globe to an internet entry point to Microsoft in West US. And by the way, in every drawing you ever see, they showed Japan way over on the right side. To me, and ever since I met Yazaki, it's over on the left side, really. It's under the Pacific, closest to West, for FYI. So that's roughly where. Any questions about this? Again, Premium, ExpressRoute, can't do some of this with standard. And now, this is the greatest thing. I wanted to throw this in because we were just talking about a security team the other day. Well, actually, it's going to be the greatest thing. Right now, it's just kind of neat. They have Azure Network Watcher, which is a preview. So I'm being optimistic. I'm not trying to be like a commercial, but this helps the network team at Yazaki. It's a new service where they're exposing certain capabilities that have frustrated us all along the way, wanting to evaluate the network security group behavior from anywhere outside with a fake port from somewhere in China, for instance, into there and evaluate, will it get there? Or just from Nicaragua going through the back routes of the infrastructure, how would it get there? Rule processing, subscription limits, that bottom bullet there, now you just go to that thing, click it, boom, it shows you all your limits in one nice consolidated view. The ones we've modified, the ones we haven't modified, how much we've consumed. And it shows you that route table, that hundreds of routes that he was talking about. Boom, all in one nice exportable display. Packet captures, tracing. At the moment, I don't know if this is going to stay this way, whatever, but you have to have a little mini agent. But now we can trace connectivity all the way through to a VM in our infrastructure, right through that private connectivity. Next, hop analysis all the way through. Cartoony maps, I call them, because they're you basically, it's one of those topology generator maps that isn't great, but it shows you all your stuff in one little view. So it shows you your NIC, attaching a network security group to the VM, to the VNet, and all that business. And there, yeah, there's just the URLs I just threw in. But there you go.
So go back and talk about the network security groups, basically, because this is a very simple way to protect firewall, right, and put your rules. And the challenge I'm having, tell you the truth, as an end user, is you get a lot of security companies that they are telling us that, hey, my product works at Azure, my products work, and then it's like, okay, you have a firewall, I need a firewall. I'm like, okay, well, I need a riverbed, I need all these things, right? And I sit down with a lot of Microsoft senior executives, okay? And I tell them, okay, if your network is very secure, why other security team are creating product for your network?
Because you can shoot yourself in the foot really easily.
And I mean, because I honestly, some people says, okay, well, I don't get enough logs. I don't feel comfortable with it, right? And I want it to be like my environment, right? So we have a WAN accelerator, Riverbed. We have more. I mean, like my network is huge. We have more than 60 of them around the globe. And now it's like, okay, should I put a Riverbed in the cloud or not? Yes. So
by the way, that is a real discussion we're having right now for some. There isn't one at the moment, but we're considering it.
Yes. So the point I'm trying to make, you guys think about things in Microsoft are changing very fast.
Very fast.
So the minute I confront the person who told me this, it says, oh, it's already resolved. I'm like, wait a second, right? Should I connect my company with a lot of investment of hardware and then find out that Microsoft is going to introduce that feature in 2 or 3 months? So I start believing on, okay, let's see what they give me today, test it, verify it, before you jump in to say, yeah, because I'm a Cisco or I'm a, like a checkpoint firewall, I need a checkpoint firewall for Azure. Think about that. I mean, honestly, that's my point to everybody here. So just like, don't throw your money away. Maybe you could do it very simplistically within your subscription, within your cost, and you get the same amount, but maybe less logs or ability to this. And then suddenly today, when they talked about log management and all that stuff, so now I'm not worried about it. There's another solution that I can, that you presented a minute ago that I can use to start getting logs and usage and all that stuff. That I felt like, okay, well, my firewall is extended with that product, right? So that's my point.
Yeah, hits on network security group. So a couple of things, like, we designed a handful of these applications that we deployed we piloted 1 or 2 a year and change ago. The others we're deploying and piloting and putting in production as we speak, but the capabilities are changing. Like the application firewall, a fairly new feature. Just months ago, we were having to say, oh my gosh, I got to spend all these money on these reverse proxies and all this stuff. Now there's application firewall, which gives you integration into Azure Active Directory and access log tracking. The stuff that we thought about just a year ago is now just a couple clicks away. But really, I'm going to get back to this. The NSGs, this is cool because NSGs are really kind of crude. And even in our own company, Chris, we have fights between us about, is a network security group, it's really just an ACL. It's an access list. It's nothing more than an access list. And if you know how to configure a Cisco access list, it's like that, with that level of granularity. And you're like, okay, that's simple and not enough, probably, is what many people think. In some cases, it actually is enough. And I'm one of those people that argues about it. But now you can say, okay, that is interesting, but now we've got the other capability where we can actually track
users coming in and have that first level of defense to make sure it's not coming from a rogue country, all these kinds of things. I think my whole point there is that every design we're putting forward has to be reevaluated based on the constant change that's coming up.
In a monthly basis.
Yeah. So, but that's all I had to, do you want me to cover any more challenges?
Any questions for us? Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that hold us back from moving these reloads there is I got lots of applications for it, lots of stuff I can run there. The problem is that you integrate with an on-prem iSeries.
Database. Oh.
Yeah, I could be database to iSeries, but it's these on-prem things that need the high-speed connection or data. Is there?
Can I talk at a high level about that?
Did we run into that? Or
What you can share.
We did run into that.
Okay.
Just go ahead.
So the question is, wanting to take the plunge, but having to have the applications or servers for other people needing to connect back to something on-prem. Similarly, we look at it as a spider web because in certain automotive corporations' cases, you may have applications that have multiple interdependencies, and you have to look at them all holistically and go, okay, we have a cloud initiative. That's what we're doing. And the first of these apps, it's going to be painful because it reaches back to the, I'll make one up, an AS400 or a Unix server or something. But the second one, okay, it also reaches, so you put the second one up. Now those two are happy together as neighbors, but they're still reaching in. And there is a tipping point at which you've got more things. And so for us, the express route was a lifesaver. The VPN was tough, but it was a proof of concept for us before we moved to express route. Once it was their initiative and they bought into the express route, new possibilities opened up because of stability, other things like that. The VPN worked, by the way. I don't want to dog the VPN too much. It is, but if you the redundancies and things, you can set up, depending on your hardware, redundancies and call it a business-worthy path, but it's true. You can't get around the fact where there's egress charges if the data is coming out of the cloud onto your first 5 gig free every month. The rest is charged. It doesn't cost to. We have an astronomical amount of data coming out of there, and it's still not that much.
So to answer your question from a network point of view, not from a server point of view,
yeah,
you got express route that is predictable. It's always in your connection as far as the network, right? And to your data center, and it can, with express route from Microsoft, even if though you buy 50 meg, you could overburst to 100 meg. So if a database is talking to a database, right, and you are pumping that, and now you're not sharing it with the end user, you got a very solid connection. I mean, I don't have a 10 gig connection like in your data center, but I got a very decent connection that I could live with, right? But if your legacy application stays in-house and you start getting your application servers or the new one, then you need to pull information back and forth, right? If you have the express route, you had more success than you are sharing that with an internet, even if I have 1 gig. That's my opinion. That's what we're going with. And I think you could consider that. You could share the database over the internet, but sometimes you don't know what, you cannot control that with QoS and jitters and all that stuff. But that's the reality of it today.
I want to add 2 things to that if I could.
Yep, go ahead.
Server guy speaking again.
Okay.
So a couple of great tools. Mover, Cloudimize.
Yes.
These are companies that Cortec is working with and partnering with, and within Yazaki. These tools, what they do is they basically run on your systems. And I think Cloudimize you can buy off the shelf for something like $30 a server. Chris, is it something like that? Do you recall? I don't recall the cost.
You installed Mover.
We did for Yazaki, but these tools don't cost a lot.
The more
of money.
expensive one.
It was subsidized by a certain helpful organization, I might add. But you can where was it? Servers. So you install this agent on the servers, and what they do is they do multiple things. They size your servers for the correlating size for Azure. That's one point. They help to correlate and quantify the load on them, processor averages. So while it's a 8-core server, in fact, they might be telling you only need 2 because you're only loading this much. Then Cloudomize, Movera, they do it differently, but they show you the interconnects. They show you the spider webs. Well, you will look, and this happened to us, you will look at a server and go, hey, this thing's transferring to a file server.
Mhm.
We didn't even know it was doing that. No one reported it, and it gets caught by these agents. And then like Movera's has a table view, Cloudomize has a visual view. It shows you thing and all things it connects to and how much. Where Movera does an increment, shows you how much per interval that you chose. But so then you can go, oh, now I know this thing talks to that server this much. We're moving this guy to the cloud, but not that guy, and that's how much it's going to cost me. Incredibly helpful.
So a
What's your
suggestion,
question?
Movera or these tools, I think we need a session here to talk about that.
That is a great suggestion.
I'm serious. I mean, this is a good tool for you for planning and ability for you to see what's running before you jump into production. So the lesson we learned is we never did that side of the planning. We did a lot of estimates, and I put in multiple PCs in different countries, and we collected that data, and we went through that exercise. And we said, okay, how much SharePoint is going to be used? How much Exchange we're going to be used? We come up with a lot of predictability, and then we come up with a model, and we said, okay, this is how I'm going to design my network. This here is real data from the server side. So from both ends, so you get whatever you predicted and what's really going, and then you decide where the gap is before you run into production, before you say, yes, I'm going to do this.
Let's take the question.
Did you take a look at other public cloud vendors trying to address the need?
Yeah.
And do you feel that now that you've implemented the Microsoft or Azure approach, are you feeling that you're locked in?
I have an opinion on that, but I think yours is more interesting if you're...
No, I mean, honestly, we did not consider other cloud solutions in our case. And for two reasons, okay? Reason number one, we are huge Microsoft licenses, right? And Microsoft, basically, it made sense for us. With cost and ability to jump to that solution, right? And the bigger you are, the harder to say, I'm going to make a U-turn and go back to, try something else. If I'm a small business, I would try multiple cloud solutions. That I'm not knocking off other solutions, right? But I'm trying to say the bigger you are, right, and the more licenses and investment that you have done, that's reason number one. Reason number two, and a lot of people, they don't understand that, is our users' ability to adjust to other things very easily. You don't have that luxury in a big company. You don't want your production to start thinking about, okay, well, you do it differently, you do it this way and all that stuff. But even with Exchange, yesterday I was talking to a bunch of engineers about when we moved to SharePoint Online, and before we had SharePoint on-premise, I said, oh, do you guys have any challenges? Oh, yeah, I don't like that ribbon. I did not like this. This is how much detail they don't like, right? And then you say, oh, I'm going to move from here to another cloud. This is another operating systems and all that stuff. That you're going to lose that battle very quickly, very quickly. I hope I go ahead.
Oh, I would only add, I'm reasonably well versed in a couple of competitors as well. And I would say that for an enterprise, and for many companies, the IaaS and ExpressRoute capabilities, and I got to back up. A lot of people's journeys to the cloud start with taking your stuff, analyzing it, and making a sister version of it in the cloud, rather than saying, okay, developers, recode all of our important applications and deploy them as PaaS solutions. If you did that, then you could sit there and cross-shop different PaaS vendors and not care if it's Linux or Windows, but in much to the end users too, support infrastructures. They're used to their Windows servers. They're used to routed paths. They're used to all of this stuff. So it just wasn't reasonable to pick up and say Google Cloud or something like that. It can if your support model is willing to be flexible and change and all that, but yeah, that's kind of the concern. Oh, and another thing I mentioned, even Chris in his own presentation, a lot of the Azure stuff that exists in Azure today, by the way, the Microsoft's no dummies. They know that people have interest in Amazon Cloud and things like that, so they're making a lot of their products manage things in Amazon Cloud or participate with or connect with or pull data from and all that stuff. So,
Any other questions, guys?
well, I want to ask a question. Did anybody else have any question that they came with tonight that they didn't get answered? Or are we just here for curiosity? Or because this is a pretty intelligent group of folks here. You want to turn it to a room conversation now?
I'm still at the end of all this, still not seeing the line that
Oh,
talking about how you're still using the internet as an actor. The internet was solid. It works. Why? And I say this because we have customers who want. We manage multiple actors. We have financial consolidation software. We have customers that are in both models. Both sides. From an enterprise standpoint, why?
Well, if you think about it from a security point of view, you say, I want to move a specific legal department's directory. I don't want to put it exposed to the internet, right? And then the way that you could access to it is through the internet. And then try to explain to the executives that, yeah, I'm using encryption and IPsec and all that stuff, and this is great, right? But in reality, you will have a better sell with ExpressRoute to say, I am extending my network to Azure and all secure over a private network, right? And I'm connected to that directory. So that's one angle of it. So it's just a comfort level for our users to feel like, okay, everything is good, right? Now, from server to server information, I'm telling you, it will make more sense to have authentications, a lot of stuff. It adds more security layers to it. So if your users are more not caring about the security side of it, yes, put everything in the internet, compete with other users who are using your internet, and then suddenly a year from now somebody is serving something and then decided that, and then they're coming to you as a network guy, says, oh, my server is not talking to this server, authentication failure or replication failures and all that stuff. So I felt we are positioned today or a year ago that if we go with ExpressRoute, that's the safest way to do it for us to comfort level. And then the other thing is with our Japanese company, right? I mean, a Japanese company is not going to be easy to convince to say, hey, trust me, the internet is okay, right? So if you put all these three together, you could realize that why a company will do the ExpressRoute in it. Now, the other thing is, the funny part is, when I signed up for my ExpressRoute monthly charges, it went down 20% later in like less than 3 months. They reduced their cost. This is the first time AT&T is like reducing costs rather than increasing costs. So I have that is telling you, that's basically answering your question. There's a lot of people are not doing it, right? But in reality, that if you have that channel and it's a small bandwidth, it's good. It's good to have it.
Also scale.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, and also, isn't it, it's also a quality of service too.
Yeah, absolutely. Your question was kind of VPN.
It's okay. Well, if you are a Microsoft engineer, they will tell you, hey, we did a lot of things, caching. We did a lot of technology so that you don't worry about that. Don't worry about it. Use the internet, right? But I'm talking about from a security point of view, right? QoS, jitters, and all that stuff from an MPLS. Still, I'm saying Skype traffic is going through MPLS. Don't go through the internet, right? Because I'm not worried about QoS. I'm worried about somebody is utilizing the internet in a high bandwidth for any reason, right? And competing with my real traffic, right? So that another comfort level that saying, okay, this is going this way, right?
That takes me back 25 or more years ago to the arguments
Open Ring 16 megabit and 100 megabit Ethernet.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, that's true.
No. We're arguing with people that it just switched because it was like, well, it went from 10, which was slower than 16. You know, it was 416, and then it was 10. And then they went to 100 megabit. You switched so fast. Well, it depended on the traffic. It depended on the
It does. I would only add that
All right.
as a non-networking person, that the way that ExpressRoute, the effect that it's had is that it's basically excellence in a box without a whole lot of cares, because otherwise the weight and response, if we had like dual VPNs, it would be on him and his team all times to be monitoring, maintaining that, and you own it. And it's traffic either way, and as long as you've got bandwidth to handle both, there's a cost, but it ends up, you can call somebody and tell them to fix it. It's through reliable carriers with high SLAs and all that stuff.
So another question, to answer your question, it's like I get a requirement is I want an independent 3-4 servers that engineering is going to be using for specific things, right? And I don't want this to be accessible from the internet. If I say yes, I will put it in the cloud in Azure, and Azure is easier and all that stuff, but in order to access to it through the internet, that means it's accessible through the internet, even though it's not accessible through the internet, but the users coming through to it through the internet. But in this reality, I could say, I could build 5 servers, you know, Jeremy, build me 5 servers, and those 5 servers, you're not going to be able to access to them through the internet, and you have to go through this express route in order to get to them, because they're low usage, data sensitive, whatever. Then I have a case that I could say this is secure, right? I mean, it's yeah.
I just came from 11 years of working for.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay. Yep.
Scott,
We're good?
a person on our session was telling us that the questions were unrecognizable, so sorry we didn't repeat the questions. So again, is there anything that anybody's got to ask that they just want to know from anyone in the room? Go. Aha! Can I, anyone interested in real world Store Simple stuff? Okay. As a supplier? And it makes sense.
Really?
Yeah, and the price dropping thing, a lot of stuff in Azure's been dropping historically. I don't think it's because of lack of sales. I think it's because of scale. But okay, so Store Simple. There's so much to say. The appliances, the virtual machines. Why are you asking? Let's go there.
Well, I mean, we're looking at the use case we're looking at is we've got a ton of data that we've got to put somewhere.
You're looking. Okay, I'm going to repeat for the people on the cloud. You're looking at a use case where you've got to deal with a ton of data, and what kind of data is it? Graphics. That's really not what I meant. What I meant is, does the data, is it files that get closed a lot, or files that are opened a lot? Are they large?
The graphics, yeah. So they could be images, it could be video. There's actually 2 big use cases. There's the graphics side of it, and then there's also the log. Log detection that you write it, and hopefully we never have to open it again.
All right, graphics and logs, basically 2 buckets of your use cases. I would say this, the absolute best way to get the best use out of a Store Simple and spend the least money on the back end in Azure, if you're going to buy a device, and actually there's another story behind that, the use case for them is strongest when it's data that is going to be closed and forgotten about. Because then the Store Simple basically chunks it up into little bits, moves it off the SSDs onto HDDs, and then dumps them up to the cloud and keeps just the pointers and retains them. If you have to access it regularly, it has to keep them nearby. And it's got capabilities to mandate to do that, or just because it wanted to. When it comes down to graphics that are large binaries, and you're accessing them regularly, they're going to stay somewhere on the local machine in the storage, hot or cold, don't know. And the use case, the benefit there, of course, is that it's a storage array, that the other storage is going offline rather than it. So it works. And don't forget this, that today you must have an iSCSI presentation. You must put a file server in front of it. People occasionally have the misnomer that you can just buy a Store Simple box and it's now your file server. It is a storage device that requires a file server in front of it today. But are you an enterprise that is getting them by virtue of your EA, or? Okay, then yeah, if you're already going to trip over one, if it's just going to suddenly appear in your enterprise, absolutely, it's a great thing for home shares, home folders for end users, repositories for logs and some archival data. Don't use it for Exchange. Don't use it for databases. Don't use it for VMs. You can do all these things, by the way. Don't. And I'm willing to stake myself on this public thing and say, don't. Because all that data will stay resident in the SSD and never go away. And it will do that, but that's not its purpose. Use your good storage for that and put your soon-to-be stale storage on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do. We've got a bunch of data that we're generating this year, and it's the way we put it. And we got to put it somewhere. It doesn't have to be like super high performance. And the place to put it like the graphics data, we're expecting it to increase some data that we can use, but that's going to age out. Put your data out, and then
Okay, a wave of data that rotates cyclically in its use case, so the older stuff needs to go away somewhere.
And they may every once in a while need to access it, so it'll be there.
Yes.
That's not the primary thing. They'll still be able to
Yep.
do it. It might be a little slower, but
Yep.
the hot data will be on local on the appliance, but the log, and then the other use case is the log integration where we write it.
Okay, so Hazem left the room, but I'll say this. With a Store Simple, your most important thing is going to be your friendship with your networking person, because what's going to happen is it's got a mandatory, a documented minimum of a certain amount of bandwidth for changes, deltas being synchronized to the cloud, and it's not trivial. So be aware of it. They claim 50, I think, or something like that. It's up there.
Was that up or down or both?
It's up. It's because, but then here's the thing: you have control over the quota template. They call it a template. It basically it's the amount of data that you'll send in an interval, and you can lock that down and regulate it. But guess what? If you aren't doing it fast enough to catch your changes, it becomes less useful because now it's not up to date. And the other major benefit of a Store Simple is its disaster recovery capabilities, where it's making an instance of itself elsewhere that you could then restore either in the cloud or in another building in another country if a disaster befell you.
Well, that was the other problem with the data. Like if we increase our on-prem storage, then we have to increase our on-prem backup. The appliances are looking at all those problems.
It does. Caveat there. In discussions I've had with folks, they've misunderstood how the DR works. I want to pass along a misunderstanding and make sure you don't stumble in it. It's not that it replicates real time to a storage device elsewhere. It replicates, it chunks itself up, puts bits in the cloud, leaves pointers behind on it, and then in the event of a total cataclysm of this device, you can say, go to the cloud. I have another one sitting on a closet shelf. I'll pull it out, interconnect it, and push down the config and all the data. Well, not all the data, all the pointers. At first, it's just all the pointers to it. And then as users access the data, it pulls the data they need. But it's in moments back online as far as it appears, a full recovery. But of course, it's an iSCSI device. It has to be behind a file server, so you got to have the file server as part of your solution as well. The volumes can become the replication point. So yes, so they don't replicate to each other. They can't be used as a real-time online solution replicated. But if you had two of them and you wanted the second one to be powered on but doing nothing, you could push that data back to it in the event of a failure. The virtual appliances. So a farm. You can change. First of all, you can have a farm of physical ones. You can have a farm of virtual ones. You can run them in Azure if you want. You can restore to and from the one in Azure if you want as a DR plan and not need the second one, which actually a certain automotive company sitting very nearby is employing or interested in employing or under process of employing. but yeah, so Hazem, when you left the room, I mentioned the considerations about the bandwidth constraints of the store simples and being mindful of the potential bottleneck, because guess what? You could have one person say, I'm not going to put any bandwidth restrictions on this and on the device, and then I'm going to copy all our engineering data to it, and then remember that express route?
Yep.
Or not the internet path basically is crushed at that point. At this moment, frustratingly, it still must be managed in the classic portal, which I can't tell you how frustrating that is. You can manage the appliances, virtual appliances, the farm, what's the word? The array. You can manage the array from the new portal, but the physical 8100 series device must still be managed from the classic portal. Just a heads up. That's about all I can think of. Otherwise, I completely advocate them strongly. It's an amazing solution. Here's the last tip for you. You get about 210 terabytes of storage on these things, on the 8100 series. 210 terabytes of seemingly available storage, because that's what it presents, and of course it's using the mechanism to chunk it up and send it to the cloud. If you do what's called pin volumes, which is where you can take some or all of the device and mandate that it's pinned, and none of that data will ever leave that device, doesn't care about the cloud, doesn't do backups, doesn't chunk anything, 8 terabytes. So that tells you it's got roughly 8 terabytes of actual space, and it benefits, about 200 terabytes of 8600. Yeah, that's higher, and I don't remember the numbers on the top of my head. Is that what you're looking at? Okay, cool. Maybe you can do a talk about it next time. Okay.
We need people participation.
That's true. Okay, so let's say we are hoping that other folks with big or small, so that's our goal today, was a big company real world experience, and we've done small ones, and so tell your friends, tell a story, and what we need to do is, for coordinating the presenters, we need to get an understanding of, do you just want to talk for 5 minutes and tell a story, what you did when you clicked through something and it overcharged your credit card or something? That's interesting. Or just sign up. At the moment, Hannah's taking all those bits of information, but Hannah doesn't want to do it forever. So we also could use a volunteer to take over scheduling the sessions. Nominate somebody who didn't attend. That's always nice. But that's all I got, and I'll hand over.
I have a question. Does everybody, if Yazaki hosted this in our facility as a team, a little bit, if everybody can get to Benton, is it okay? Or is it too far?
Wow, that was not big. For me, this is very close.
Okay.
I'm not saying I wouldn't go to Canton, but
Just one time, something like that. If we want to change the scenery, is that okay with you guys?
I think that's good.
Is that okay with Microsoft there?
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's something we should think of.
Sorry, for the people on the phone, on the computer via the internet, they were talking about doing a session in the future in Miyazaki, so getting a change of scenery. So just a heads up there. We are over on time, but I want to thank everyone for coming today. Great discussions and great job to our presenters and great questions. So for the giveaway, woo! I'm sorry, what? Oh yeah, thank you to our presenters. Yeah, thank you, sorry. Thank you, Jeremy and Hazem. Let's see, Karen, will you pick a number 1 through 19? Or a random number generator on an app, that way it's very random. 10. Kurt Vogel?
hello.
That is
All
you. So to wrap up, unfortunately we didn't have a next session date finalized. So is there any, I know we talked about doing this on a monthly basis. Is there any time, I know we have spring breaks and Easter and everything coming up. Are we thinking end of April, beginning of May? Is there any one that has a very strong opinion on when the next meeting should be? No? Either of those sound good to everyone?
Yep.
And then specifically any topics? I know we talked about some of the tools that you can,
Monitoring tools.
yeah, the monitoring tools.
Yeah, Mulberry or Cloudwise, or other representatives, and maybe more for you. Can you advertise through the meetup and say, hey,
Yes.
we're ready for sessions?
Yeah. So next time I'll maybe do some more lightning sessions, some more brief lightning sessions, and go ahead.
I don't know if it's measured here. We've got a guy that is talking to that present this group. He's part of our global black belt team that focuses on open source. So he wants to come do a talk about open source. That's an interest.
Actually, it's good.
He's a good. I'm interested in everything.
Yeah. Maybe he could.
You guys all, like, you never know networking type guys or any dev guys here? You know, one day data guys? Data guys? Because I'd like to see us fix the topics.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see if there's a lot of stuff we can help.
Yeah, the last time, basically had developed, well, we crammed a lot. We tried to, it might have been too much. I don't know, but you gotta find that balance, you gotta alternate.
Mm-hmm.
But last time we tried to touch on development, infrastructure. This time it was, conceptual, big, those kinds, big company, et cetera. And so that's what I'm saying. What we should do, I think, is I would like to, from the meetup, ask for topic submissions, and then turn right around and say, you don't even have to present it, or just make a suggestion, and someone else pick it up and say, I'll do that.
Yeah.
So again, there's people online. So what they're recommending is on the meetup site, recommend topics that you're interested in. There are polls on there right now. If there's specific topics that you want to hear about, or if you're interested in presenting a topic, or if you have a suggestion, a recommendation on a topic you know someone is good at presenting, but they might not have the courage to recommend themselves or volunteer. So I guess we'll wrap that up today, but thank you everyone for coming. Looking forward to the next session, and good job to all our presenters today.
Thank you for organizing.
I think there were like 2. Oh, and just so you all know, we recorded the session today too, so we'll be posting that on the, we actually have a YouTube page. Don't know if you know that, but we have a YouTube page. So I'll post the video on the YouTube page and then post that link on the meetup page. So again, the meetup page has all the information. And there's great forums on there too, like comments of people recommending things and suggestions. So go there and dive into that content.
I didn't sign in.
Oh, I'm sorry. You messed up on
That's not me too. This pin is done.